Jensen and Elon have been friends for some time. Most people don't even realize that Nvidia's Jensen Huang has mentioned in the past that he wants to be involved in everything that Elon does. That's a pretty amazing statement from someone that owns the largest company in the world. Let's forget about the stock movement right now. SpaceX's earnings call went pretty well, and almost everything beat Wall Street expectation, except, of course, for the spending. Obviously, there was a significant net loss, but I don't think we should focus so much on capex right now. Like Gene Munster, he said it best, if you want to grow and evolve, it takes dough. Now, am I the only one that believes we have maybe 1 year at the most to get our investments in before this thing skyrockets? Obviously not investment advice. SpaceX also mentioned that the payback period with their capital deployment is about 1 year. Wow. Now, Elon Musk has confirmed Flight 14 of Starship will be actually the first one to deploy V3 satellites into orbit. These are the next generation high-capacity broadband spacecrafts that deliver a 10-fold increase over V2 models. They weigh about 4,400 pounds each and require a payload capacity of the SpaceX Starship to deploy in large batches. Also, SpaceX is hoping to catch both the booster and the ship at some point in the near future. People don't realize that the story of SpaceX right now is how fast and how efficient they can deploy compute, because it is about how they derive CSAs or cloud service agreements that are driving those payback periods. Also, at the end of Q2, SpaceX had about 1.4 gigawatt of compute online, and that was up from 1 gigawatt at the end of Q1. However, SpaceX is expecting to end 2026 with over 2 gigawatt of compute online. Nobody talks about that Elon made a comment about 15 to 20 gigawatt, but that was for the power and of the cooling equipment. SpaceX is sourcing excess cooling and power equipment to ensure they can actually bring smaller levels of compute and get online. Also, Elon confirmed in a longer term, SpaceX is only expecting to need about 10% of SpaceX's compute capacity to train crop, which means that 90% of compute that the company is bringing online will likely be for CSA or cloud service agreements. And it will change how you see the deals with Anthropic, Google, and others. SpaceX was mentioning continuously the increased favorable economics, or also known as revenue. It was also mentioned that the supply and demand imbalance will likely continue. The SpaceX team said that by the end of this year, they are expecting to be at an annual run rate revenue-wise of $100 billion. And Elon said it might be even higher, because that is where they would land if they don't do anything further from today. But this won't be the case, obviously. Last year, SpaceX's revenue was under $19 billion, and this year they will be at a run rate of potentially over $100 billion. If 2 gigawatts of compute generate somewhere north of $100 billion, SpaceX can hit 10 gigawatts of compute towards the end of 2027 and will give the company about $500 billion in revenue. Most people won't realize that this could happen without any growth in Starlink. However, Starlink's V3 satellites are supposed to be much more capable than V2 versions. So even the annual revenue per user of ARPUs means annual revenue per operational satellite, is expected to come down as they go into new countries and have lower rates per geography. Revenue is still expected to climb because of improved performance and the number of Starlink users. And I didn't even realize that in Q1 alone, Starlink added 14.4 million new customers. In Q2, Starlink globally added 1.7 million new customers. Also, SpaceX is expecting these numbers to increase with the deployment of the V3 satellite and improved Starlink capabilities. And most people don't realize that SpaceX expecting Starlink to be a significant portion of the global internet traffic sometime in the near future. Also, most people don't realize that they have significant growth expected for the Starlink mobile to direct-to-cell service, where SpaceX is expecting to launch V2 satellites for that service next year. V2 satellites for Starlink mobile and V3 satellites for consumer broadband are two different things. Quinn Shotwell said that the current system uses 5 megahertz of bandwidth, and they operate that through the local telco providers. However, with the new CoStar spectrum purchase, they will now have 65 megahertz of bandwidth available, which will increase capabilities. She also said that SpaceX will acquire quite a few customers from Verizon, AT&T, and T-Mobile, and their $650 billion in revenue per year simply by eliminating dead zones. Now sit down and let me tell you this. Elon was guessing that they would need about 1,000 V3 satellites deployed, and he was guessing the timeline would land sometime in Q2 next year to see improvements. Also, Elon mentioned that Starmind, the AI satellite, will be built exclusively with Nvidia compute. Yes, my second most favorite company. Musk said it is simple. Nvidia's Vera Rubin architecture is the best one can buy. SpaceX is expecting to begin launching these AI-1 satellites next year. I didn't realize they will be not just in orbit, but also deployed on Earth. Now, Elon said the same Starmind V1 satellite design, minus solar and radiator, will be deployed on the ground at their data centers. And it's a big improvement in data centers' efficiency. It's a simplification of the normal NVL72 rack. They'll cost less and be more efficient. And now Elon is teaming up with Jensen Huang from Nvidia. I knew something was going on after Jensen started an X account. So two of the most powerful companies are joining forces. Jensen has said in the past that he wants to be involved in everything that Elon does. Well, here is what I think about the deal. It mostly means that Elon will likely come first when it comes to the allocation of chips that is needed for his projects. And think about it, Starlink is absolutely killing it from the enterprise perspective as well as the consumer perspective. Now, the company enterprise and government revenue is up over 108% year over year, and it is expected to be moving forward. And I didn't realize that SpaceX has also mentioned that they have never lost an enterprise customers. Now, that simply means that the customer is happy with a service that will continue to improve. Starlink is only 10% activated when it comes to aviation, and there is still a ton of room to grow. The company is expecting to eventually exceed consumer revenues significantly, which goes with Elon's comments that their internal projection of $1 trillion in revenue has been pulled forward from 2031 to 2030. And there's a non-zero chance that it'll be in 2029, which means it would be roughly an order of magnitude, as Elon would put it. A revenue increase between 2027 and 2029 or 2030. Here's the truth about it. If a significant portion of that continues to be cloud service agreements, which are big EBITDA contributors and have those nice economics, SpaceX will deliver on its statement. Do you think that SpaceX is getting all of the excitement right now? Well, not much happens with Tesla. Well, the reason we keep talking about SpaceX is simple. Eventually, SpaceX and Tesla will merge. However, what SpaceX is doing right now is pretty amazing. SpaceX has unbelievable potential, and I love what Gene Munster said with deep water asset management. He said investors have no idea what the company will do. He believes SpaceX will be the most valuable company. His words, not mine.
And what gave was the CapEx number. And this conversation has been maddening for me over the past 6 quarters, given I'm a big believer that more CapEx is a good thing because we are so early in AI, especially more CapEx for a company like SpaceX that is really defining vertical AI or sovereign AI. This is not part AI business, part space business. This is a vertically integrated AI company. I truly believe that. And I think that to build that future, you got to spend a lot of dough. So I think focusing on the CapEx is a total head fake here. They're currently growing their at least this year, with Falcon, they're able to do about 2,500 tons of payload into space. That's about 80% of the payload globally that's brought to space is brought through SpaceX. That's an important point. He thinks with the new Starship and some of the new payload capacity that number could go up in the next several years by order of 400 times more to 1 million tons per year to 10 million tons a year. Now, is that capacity, a lot of that is going to be relative to building the Starlink business and internet, which is part of that vertical AI, part of the vertical AI story. The second is in terms of Starlink. There's a new version of Starlink that's coming out that's going to launch at the end, basically in a month, is version 3. And that will effectively allow better speeds and more tiered and will help them continue to grow that business. They also talked kind of related to the access business about Starlink Mobile and talked about the opportunity by the end of next year to have a mobile carrier that is competing with T-Mobile and AT&T and Verizon and will effectively be the 4th carrier. And they talked about in Grok 5.0 by the end of this year, which is going to train on all the engineering data within SpaceX. That will give Grok an opportunity to be potentially one of the most powerful enterprise models. And I think you're going to see a leapfrog with Grok relative to some of these rankings over the next several quarters. And I could foresee a case where a year from now, Grok is the premier model, better than Fable, for example. So these are really big opportunities. They're talking about huge levers that they can pull over the next few quarters. And I think most investors, given the history with Tesla and setting expectations, hear these numbers and largely dismiss them.
So here's what I think about it. Of course, people are picking these numbers apart, especially in the investment media. But giving these cloud service agreements and very high payback periods, these negative numbers will continue to downtrend. Also, from a consumer standpoint, Grok 4.7 will be coming in another month from now. Future Grok models would have the entire data of SpaceX included in a model training. It would be an amazing tool for engineers. Grok is already in Tesla's vehicles and will be the brain of Optimus. Also, X is launching their new own payment system, moving towards the Everything app. Elon Musk is shaping our future, and this might be a good thing. Thank you so much for watching, and hopefully I will see you next time with more updates. Goodbye.